Hi, it's Penny here. Welcome to another reading vlog. This week I have 3 books that I'll be carrying over from my last reading vlog. I am also hoping to get to this one if reading time and priorities allows. I've been trying to read this month 100 pages a day and it's been a bit of a struggle. So we'll see this week whether I continue it or not. If I do, I'll get to this. If not, then I'll talk about it later. So the main things I have in progress is The Martian Contingency by Robinette Kowal. That is her name, right? Yes. So this is the 4th, and I think it's going to be the final book in the Lady Astronaut series, although I feel like no matter how this wraps up, there would still be scope for more books in that world. But at the same time, this series has received like very little marketing attention that I've seen. And so I kind of suspect it's the last book. Anyway, in this one, we're following our main character, Alma York, who is the Lady Astronaut. So basically, this is an alternate history where in the 50s, a meteor hit the Earth, killed off a bunch of people, and kind of set things in motion so that in the near future, the Earth won't be habitable anymore. And Alma is both like a computer at NASA who does like the mathematical calculations and also has a history from the war as a pilot. And so she's like, well, I should be involved in this astronaut program because I'm very qualified for it. And there's a bunch of other women who also should be involved. And the first book is all about kind of that process of them getting involved and being allowed to be involved even though they're women. And in that first book, they do go to the moon. The second book, they go to Mars, and there's a big drama because the space program also starts to be sabotaged by these people called Earth First, who believe that the space program is a waste of time and we should just focus on saving the Earth. And I say we like this is something I'm actually experiencing. I think Robinette Kowal just is doing such a great job of like setting it in the real history of the world that it feels very real. But it's also like a problem that's so relevant today with all our climate issues that it almost feels like a real alternate history, if you know what I mean. Anyway, in this one, basically a habitat has been set up on Mars and this group of people have gone there to try and set it up for a bigger population to live in. Alma has been given a position of leadership, but it's become very clear that secrets are being kept from her, and then when something goes wrong, it's not clear if it's linked to those secrets or if there's some kind of bigger sabotage going on, or was it just an accident, because accidents happen when you're on Mars and you have limited resources and like it's easy for things to go wrong. So I think I'm actually about a third of the way in. I think in my last vlog I tried to say I was halfway in, but I'm being more realistic in this update. So I'll try and read some more of this tonight and then I'll update you about it. As well, for audiobooks, I really need to find time to reread this as an audiobook. I already read it. It's a very short little fairy tale book. I already read it. I did really love it. But I want to listen to the audiobook because it has this musical component. It's all about these sisters that sing to the willow trees. So I want to listen to the audiobook to hear the singing and get that experience. So hopefully I can find some time for that this week. As well, I will be finishing off Age of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. This is set in a world with elves and dwarves, and there's a big conflict kind of brewing between the humans and the elves. I think the dwarves are also going to get involved. So this book, we did get the dwarves introduced. It's the second book in the series. Did I say that already? This is a 6-book series, so I'm up to the second book. I'm actually quite close to the end, but I think there's a few more exciting things to happen in this book. So I'm looking forward to continuing that. Maybe if I do some washing tomorrow while the sun is out. Also, my plan for this week was that I was going to read The Far Reaches, which is like a sci-fi short story anthology with short stories by a bunch of authors that I really like. I think I'll try and still get to that. However, my library just came to me and said, would you like the audiobook of Sunrise on the Reaping? Now, I'd put a hold on it, but I realized I managed to somehow put a hold on it at both the libraries I have access to. And so I thought I had to wait much longer, but that's at the other library. So this library has come through already. And I thought about freezing it, but I think I'm just going to read it. So this is the new Hunger Games book following Haymitch's Hunger Games. I really love the Hunger Games, but I hated The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So I'm worried about Sunrise on the Reaping. However, I think all the reviews I've seen so far have been really positive, which does make me feel like maybe it could be okay. Maybe? So I'm going to listen to the audiobook. It's only 13 hours, so that's not too long. So maybe I can get to that as well as my short story anthology, as well as finishing off Age of Swords. Oh, as well as listening to The River Has Roots. Maybe I'm being ridiculous. Anyway, I guess we'll see what happens. So, I am annoyed. I switched over with Age of Swords instead of finishing it via audiobook. I actually decided last night to finish it off via ebook because I had the ebook from the library and Jace wanted to go to sleep, so I thought I can stay up and read with my ebook and not bother him, because if I was reading the Martian Contingency, I would have needed a light. So instead, I was reading Age of Swords via my ebook, and I didn't quite finish it last night, but I got close. So this morning I was finishing it off, and my Kobo was saying 30 minutes to go. So I was like, cool, there's still more to happen. And then one character was like, hold on, I'm coming. And then I go to the next page, and it's the glossary. And then I think there's also a sample of the next book. So like, it kind of just dropped a cliffhanger on me, and I didn't even know it was a cliffhanger because I thought I had so much more book to go. Now I really need to read the next book, which I will probably be doing the beginning of the next month. To be honest, I'm tempted to just go straight into it, but I think it would be better to have a little bit of a break. What I also think is I might continue this series via ebook, because I did also reread like quite an emotional part that I had been listening to at the end of my last run. I reread that, and when I read it with my ebook, I cried. Now, I don't know, did I not cry while I was listening to it because it was an audiobook and I was having that listening experience, which is different? Or was it because I was out in the world and like generally I try not to cry out in the world in public? Was it because I was distracted by other things? Like, I'll never know exactly what it was. And maybe it wasn't anything. Maybe just reading it again meant it, I processed it differently. I don't know. Anyway, I do think though that even though I think the audiobook narration is really good, I think I get this story better if I read it with my eyes. So I think I'm going to go back to doing that rather than listening to the audiobook. As well, if I can keep up this 100 pages a day thing, which I don't know if I can, then I should have the time to read this physically. The only real reason I swapped to audiobook was just because I had way too much to read, which is still true, but I don't know, it's all relative. I will say I have been enjoying the thing where I read 100 pages a day because I'm reading like much bigger chunks of the books I'm reading in a single like session, and I feel like it's making me feel much more absorbed in the story, and I like that, although I'm not sure what impact that will have on my like non-reading life, which is maybe the problem. So we'll see. But at this point, I'm thinking I'll continue the series, probably on my ebook if I can get the ebooks from the library, which I think I can. Oh, also, I guess I should say for this, other than that cliffhanger surprise ending that I wasn't expecting, I did think the ending came together like so well. It did such a good job of like pulling all the different threads together and coming together in that a satisfying way at the end of the story, which I think the first book in the series did too. I actually think maybe Michael J. Sullivan's writing has kind of leveled up a bit in this series. So I'm looking forward to continuing that. Did I just say that like 2 minutes ago? 1 minute ago? Less than that? I don't know. As well, I'm about halfway through the Martian Contingency now, which I don't think is that much further on than when I last talked to you. I will say the bit that I was just reading, there's a lot of like talk about sex and pregnancy and space, and the puns are painful. Just the whole way that it's been framed and talked about is painful. And also, I actually tabbed it. There was one little bit where I honestly was like, did you just write some like, you know how when you can't work out what you're going to say, sometimes it helps just to like write something that's complete rubbish but has the points or the words that you want to say, and then from there you can somehow edit it into something that makes sense. Like, there's this one paragraph that feels like that's what's happened. Like, it doesn't even make sense. I can't work out like what was she really trying to say there? I don't know, that was weird. And it's actually quite a sensitive topic. I'm not going to tell you what because spoilers, but it's quite a sensitive topic to do with pregnancy and space. And it's
so badly dealt with. I just, I don't know about that one paragraph. Other than that, I'm liking it, but I'm liking it, but I just need less talk about sex in space. Or I guess it's not in space, it's on Mars, but still. What? That is not what I wanted this book to be focusing on, because there is still a lot of stuff that it is addressing that I'm liking. I do like a lot of the themes that this is addressing in terms of like diversity and inclusion. I would probably agree with a lot of other people I've heard talk about this series that some of those themes are quite heavy-handed in the way that they're addressed. But I have to admit that given the current state of the world and a lot of things that are happening, I feel like those messages need to be said in a heavy-handed way, because it seems like clearly a lot of people aren't getting it. So I wouldn't actually critique it too heavy for being heavy-handed in its themes. I will also say there is a bit where, like at the beginning of every chapter, there's like a little newspaper clipping, and there are a couple talking about Indians. And actually one of the characters on Mars is, well, she said, "I'm an Indian," and I was like, are you? Because it didn't fit with the description of her at all. And then I realized it's not talking about Indians from India, it's talking about Native Americans. And because this is written from the context of, like, I think this is set around the 70s. So we're using the word Indian, and it just kind of broke my brain for a little bit because I had kind of forgotten that that's what that could also mean. Anyway, sometimes some of the themes that are being dealt with in here are like things from the past, and you're like, oh yeah, that is the way people used to think. But then it's also a little bit depressing how many of those things you then have to think, oh yeah, a lot of people do still think like that. Anyway, I'm hoping, I've just gotten up to part 2, and I'm hoping we can kind of leave the recent sex and pregnancy stuff behind, and that the story could go back to just focusing on, let's work out these living on Mars problems, because that's what I want the story to be. Oh, and since I've finished this now, I will pick up the audiobook for this. I don't know when though, because I don't know when I'm going to go for a run. Tomorrow is date day, and then Friday is meant to rain. So who knows? Who knows?
Pick it up from the top, hit restart. So far it's been so hard to live, but lately something in me changed. Let it go, let it be. Don't fight your way back in. Let me go, let me be.
Hello, so I am updating you in the same spot again. I always mean to like move around in my vlogs and make them a bit more interesting, but every time I've been out this week, it's either way too windy or I just updated and I don't have anything to say. And I sometimes move around in this room, but honestly, I've been too lazy, although maybe it's just that I've been feeling a bit crappy lately. So that's my excuse, and that's what we're doing. To be honest, I know when anyone talks about this kind of thing in their vlogs, I'm like, I don't care, just tell me about the books. So let me tell you about the books. I did finish off The Martian Contingency, and I have to admit, I saw Rachel at Shades of Orange say that she didn't think this was the best book in the series, and I agree. I feel like there was a plot in here, but it was very similar to the plot in the previous book in some ways. It probably did wrap up some things that had been introduced in the previous 2 books, but because it had been so long since those were released and since I've read those, it wasn't maybe as satisfying as if I'd read it more quickly. And as well, like there's a lot of other themes and ideas that she's talking about in this, and as I said, it can sometimes be quite heavy-handed with the different issues, and I didn't think that those were as well woven into the plot as they were in the previous books. I keep pointing behind me because they're over here. So I feel like this was a good ending to the series, if it is the ending to the series. I think it gives you a fair amount of closure, although I would say if you've read this and you haven't read the short story that is, like, I think it was published first, but chronologically it's quite far in the future. I think that also gives you some more information about the end for Elmer and Nathaniel. So Nathaniel is her husband. They're on Mars. A lot of this was about their relationship and sometimes them being closer and sometimes them being separated because of their work and like feelings of anxiety when the other one would be in danger. And I liked some of the romantic moments, but as I said, I really hated all those like space sex puns. Like I just way too much of that, and just a lot of this was around that stuff, and also the idea of pregnancy in space and what that would mean, given that this setup on Mars, they're just not ready for children, but they have all these couples up in space, so like it seems likely that there's going to be some kind of situations. I'm trying to avoid spoilers, but it's hard. I think that does enough because it maybe doesn't always go in the direction you might think it does with that topic. Anyway, that went on for far too long in this book for my taste. It's not a topic I'm necessarily interested in, and I didn't really gel with a lot of the main characters' ideas around that. I did enjoy the parts in this that are about her struggling with her leadership role, and I liked the conclusion of that in this as well, but I just think the way that fit into the story was sometimes a bit clunky. Oh, and the thing that actually frustrated me the most, I say I didn't like the bits about pregnancy, I really didn't like the bits about trying to translate Earth religious practices to Mars, like especially certain dates, observing certain religious dates. What do you do when you're on Mars when those dates no longer really make sense because the days are different lengths, the months are different lengths, the years are different lengths, like it doesn't match up at all. So how are you working those dates out? And then as well, there's a lot about if you've got an international population and everybody's wanting to celebrate different public holidays and different religious events, how does that work? And I don't actually know whether that really got resolved in this, but it was talked about a lot. And there were a lot of like talks about how to calculate certain days and a lot of details about different, like our main character actually is Jewish, a lot of descriptions of different Jewish events. And I mean, I try to be tolerant of religious practices. I'm not a religious person, and I don't mind it as a topic to be brought up, but that level of detail is just something that I don't care about, so I got bored. And really this isn't that long, so like the amount of stuff that was fit into here just meant that a lot of that didn't go into depth. But see, I was just complaining about too much depth, but I think it's depth in detail rather than depth in meaning that this book is giving you. And there is a lot also which I think is very realistic space procedures, but again, I don't need that many details about the exact procedures. Just a little bit would make it feel realistic, and then maybe sometimes it took it a bit too far, but I'm sure that Mary Robinette Kowal did heaps of research for this. Like, I still think the science and the history felt very real. I'm not an expert in either of those, but it did make the world feel that like this felt like a real story rather than a fiction story, and maybe that's why I didn't like it, because I don't like memoirs, and this almost feels like an autobiography. Almost. Anyway, I'm glad I have finished the series. I'm pretty sure this is going to be the end of the series, but maybe we'll be surprised. I did see there are some short stories written in this world that I haven't read, but I think this was a nice conclusion to the series for me, so I'm probably done now unless something else is announced in the series that seems really exciting. Then, what else? Oh, I did actually make some decisions about my reading. I'm going to put this aside till next week because I think it's going to fit, like the audiobook of this. I'm going to put it aside to next week because I think it'll fit the vibes of next week's reading better. And instead, oh, and also I was going to pick this up, but I've decided instead I'm going to pick this up because, again, this fits the vibes better for next week. And I'm a little bit delusional that I could finish this this weekend or very close to it. I mean, honestly, I think that is delusional, but we'll allow it. Because I will say, date day, didn't read anything, which is fine because that's the point of date day, is to spend time together. And having just read this and experiencing through fiction being separated from your loved one and all the romantic parts of this, I wanted to spend the day with Jace, so I did, and I didn't do any reading. And then also, it's Saturday now, so it's been a while. I did finish this yesterday, but we usually try to do things on Friday and Saturday night, even if it's just watch a movie together. So that also means less reading time. So today's Saturday, so I don't know how far I'll get through this, but I'm super excited about reading this. This is The Outside. It's one of my 5-star predictions, top priority series that I already tried the first chapter of. And it's about this world where there are AI gods. And when humans die, these AI gods will like absorb their souls or eat their souls. And so the AI gods want humans to be really great so that then it will add to them, to the AI gods. But they also don't want humans to be too good because they don't want them getting out of control. And then we're following this young woman who's doing this like new energy drive physics experiment. And I think it's going to go really badly and like, I don't know, mess up their whole world. The thing that I love about this is right at the very beginning. It has this little like introduction and I just love it. Like I could read that little introduction over and over. It's so different from the rest of the book. Like the rest of the book is more, well, I've only read the first chapter, but the rest of the book is more like a typical story. But this introduction, I just love it. It's like a description. I don't know. I'm trying to decide if I should read some of it to you. I won't, but I love it. It's like a description of computers, but kind of with like a religious, non-technical context. And it ends with the words, the book you are reading at this very moment is a lie. And I can't wait to see what this book does. I think it's going to do something cool. So I'm going to be reading this as well, audiobooks. I did read the first short story of The Far Reaches by James S.A. Corey. The first story was, what was it called? I was just reading it while I put out the washing. First story was called How It Unfolds. And it was a story where humanity is expanding out into space, but they found a way basically to like transmit people, and they can transmit different copies of people to different places in space. So first we meet this guy who's getting scanned and they're like, are you excited about going to space? And he's like, well, it's not really me because I'm going to get scanned and then I'm just going to continue to live my life here. And that's only my copies that are going to space. And then he kind of continues his normal life. And then we get his copy's story. But from his copy's perspective, of course, it is still him because his copy just knows about everything up to when he was scanned. And then when they are transmitted to this new planet where they're trying to work out what's gone on in the time between the scan and the transmission. But actually kind of the core of the story is about this woman that he used to be married to and like their relationship, but all mixed together with this thing where there's different versions of him. I kind of liked it, but I think it's one of these ones where I was like, that's a cool idea. Let's do a full book with it. And maybe it would be hard to expand the story into a full book. And maybe the short story was fine, but it's a cool idea. I feel like you could do more with it. Anyway, I haven't gone for any runs since I last talked to you, even though it's been a few days. I just haven't been running much lately. Either I've been feeling crap, or we've been busy, or it's been raining. But tomorrow, I think I will, as well as maybe doing some more washing. So I'll try and read some more short stories as well as actually start Sunrise on the Reaping. And maybe next time I update you, I will be in a different location. Maybe. Thought maybe this would be a nice place to vlog, but also there's too many people keep coming past, and then also it's really noisy over on that bridge. I don't know if you can actually hear it, but quite noisy. So I'm watching people come down the path in front of me and I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe if I'm quick? I hate vlogging in public really. I like to try and find much more private places. So I'm just short of halfway through Sunrise on the Reaping. So we're only up to like the interview before they go into the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games themselves haven't started yet, and a lot of the plot points are really similar to what's happening in the original Hunger Games. I feel like I don't really know what I'm thinking yet. I know a lot of people I saw talking about this book were like, well, this really goes to explain why Haymitch is like what he's like. But I just feel like knowing that he'd previously won
a Hunger Games and gone through all that trauma already explained it to me. I also think it's been too long since I read the Hunger Games, and I'm not as good as I'd like at putting together the connections and like remembering who all the different people are. The people are getting very close now. Okay, maybe we've got another little quiet gap in the path. This is like this lovely river walkway, and it's Sunday morning, so of course there's lots of people walking here. I don't know why I thought it might be different. Anyway, I think for me, I'm really looking forward to, that sounds awful actually, but for me, Hunger Games, like the best part of it is when shit really hits the fan. I feel like even though there are a lot of messages about society in the first half, in some ways, like I know some of it's just too subtle that people miss it, or either too subtle and too obvious all at the same time. Anyway, I still have to walk home, so I will continue it while I'm doing that. As well, last night I got about 50 pages into The Outside, and that I really love it. Basically, this physics experiment, power reactor that they've made has all gone wrong, and there was some like reality messed up stuff happening. And we also got to meet these angels. So angels in this world are like people that have like some kind of like, their brain is half electronic, and one of the angels we met had like electronic arms that like break up into multiple weapons and then come together into some kind of hands or arms. I don't really know, but it's a cool idea. And these angels basically have like a high bandwidth communication line with the gods. So now it looks like the angels have some plans that our main character is going to have to be involved in. I'm only 50 pages in, but so far, loving that. I don't know. Have I read anything else? I don't think so. Anyway, more people walking this way. So that's all for now.
Meet me on the lake, meet me in dark places, meet me like the wind meets the rain.
Oh, I set up this shot and then went and grabbed my books, and now I've come back and the sun has come out, and that's not what I wanted. Let me try again. Okay, I think this is a bit better as long as the sun behaves itself. So, since I last talked to you, I finished reading Sunrise on the Reaping. I do think maybe I was a little bit unfair on it last time that I spoke to you, because like in terms of it explaining why Haymitch is the way he is, I would still say you don't necessarily need it, but it does explain that. What it really does, though, is explain a lot of the things that are going on, especially in the second Hunger Games book, but to some degree in the other ones. It kind of gives you some background to certain events, and like maybe gives you an explanation of Haymitch's connections between him and other characters. And I do think it would be really interesting because, as I said before, I've forgotten a lot of the characters. I think if you went straight from Sunrise on the Reaping into the Hunger Games, you'll see a lot of those connections. I'm tempted to do it, but I'm not sure. Because I think the other thing is, I'm just not a YA dystopian reader anymore. I mainly picked up the Hunger Games because my sister is the target demographic, or was when it came out. And so she was reading it, and so I picked it up so that I could read it with her. And I did like it, and I reread it, I think just a few years ago, and I also really loved the reread. And I do really like the Hunger Games, but I think Sunrise on the Reaping is a little bit too similar to the original for me to feel like I'm getting a lot more out of it. I definitely think that is why, though, it's getting a lot better ratings than The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I still think A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes just didn't pull off what it was trying to do. But also, I think my problem with YA dystopians is I just struggle to suspend my disbelief. Like with the Hunger Games, I just keep thinking, this is not a great way to control people and manipulate people. All the Hunger Games seems to be doing, as far as I can see, and it almost seems like it's designed to like foster rebellion and resistance in each of the districts. Like, there's so many other ways that the Capitol could be controlling people that wouldn't be as obvious that that's what they're doing and like would actually lead to better control. Like you just have to look at our real world to see that happening. So I think that's part of why I struggle with reading YA dystopian at this point. But I think for the YA demographic, like it is a really good book for opening your eyes to maybe some of the things that are similar between these YA dystopians and our world, even if our world is maybe a little bit more sneaky about it. Anyway, overall, I had a good time reading that. I don't know. I want to do a reread of The Hunger Games, but there's so many other books I want to rereading, so I'm not sure. I'll keep it on my radar and we'll see if it happens in the near future. It would have to be the near future, I think, for it to have the effect that I want it to have, and that I'll keep being like, oh, this is that character from Sunrise and the Reaping, and I see the connection. But I think as the book went on, I did remember more and more. So maybe I don't need to. I don't know. I'm tempted. Anyway, since I finished that, I did also listen to another 2 stories in Far Reaches. The Far Reaches? Yes, The Far Reaches. The first one was Void by Veronica Roth. This one is basically like a murder mystery in space. We have this like maintenance crew member, and she meets this guy when she's maintaining his toilet, and then the next day he shows up dead, and there's an investigation going on that she kind of gets involved in. So in some ways it's like a cozy murder mystery where some civilian gets involved in a murder mystery investigation, but also the sci-fi element of it was talking about the impact of relativity. So this woman has worked on this spaceship that goes between like far distances, back and forth, and she's worked there for a long time from her perspective, but from like the planet side's perspective it's been even longer because of relativity, and kind of the longer she spends on the spaceship, more and more time goes past on Earth. So now she doesn't even know anyone on Earth, so why would she leave the spaceship where all the people she knows live? And then also all the people passing through, she's only going to know them for that short time, and then once they're back on planet side, their lives will be over so quickly that she kind of doesn't keep up with any of them, doesn't really keep up with like the fashions and the trends, and the stuff that she has now is retro, and they're getting to see like wars and all the kind of big political events at quite a macro scale. But I think, like the first book, the story does still focus on the individual experience and like more relationships, which is also true of the next one, which what was it called? Falling Bodies by Rebecca Roanhorse. So this is a story about a situation where basically these aliens came along and colonized Earth and made Earth a part of their bigger colony. And it's kind of, you know, contrasting that to what's actually happened on Earth many, many times. But we're following this guy who is the like adopted son of this alien senator, but he's never even been on Earth, so he has like conflicted loyalties. And then now at this point though, when we meet him, he's at this university as a punishment for something that happened in the past, which we learn about throughout the story. I didn't necessarily love the story. I think the main character was quite unlikable, and for most of the story you didn't really know what was going on. I didn't feel like I was getting enough information to get interested. But the ending, the very ending, I did like that, especially for the like personal impact. It was actually kind of horrible, the ending, but it did have an emotional impact on me, that very ending. So I still have 3 more stories. I actually only thought there was 5, but there's 6. The next one is by Anne Leckie, who I have been reading some things by lately and really loving, so I'm hyped for that one. Maybe I'll go on a run tomorrow and finish it off. Maybe. I do think I'm going to run this blog until tomorrow, even though it's already Wednesday, because I would like to finish this before I finish this vlog. I feel like every week at the moment I'm finishing off my vlogs like a day or 2 later than the week before, so it's getting later and later. Anyway, logistics, it's annoying. I would have loved to have been reading this a lot quicker because I have been really loving it, but I also just feel like it's not something that I feel like I'm just flying through, even though I am enjoying it. But it's kind of like a lot of the time I'm just living through the plot, and then there's moments of like brilliance and moments where I'm like, that is amazing. Like, I love what this book is doing, but also at the same time, it's kind of a character focused story. So I don't think I've said, but our main character is this autistic woman, and her autism is quite a large part of her experience. And this book is really showing how her perception is affecting her experience, but you also often get to see how people's reactions to her affect her. Anyway, I really like the representation of it in this. We've also learned a lot more about the weirdness that's going on with this world. Oh, and I should say, we're also getting the perspective sometimes from this angel, and he kind of comes across as like this quiet, badass guy who's just like doing his job and willing to do whatever he has to do to get things done. But also his crew, I love them. One of them is basically this really young angel, although he's been training him for 50 years, but he looks young because he became an angel when he was young, and he can't control his emotions very well. They're meant to like send these text messages like brain to brain, and this young angel can't help but put emotions into his messages. But like the leader angel is still like really carefully mentoring him, and you can tell that he really cares about him, and vice versa. We also have this other angel, the one with the like crazy arms, and he basically found her on the trash heap, and she can't verbalize, but like she can still text send. And I just love the way that I just love the way that this angel cares about the other angels, even though his image or what he puts forward is that he doesn't care and they're just tools to do their job. And I guess that's the same way he's acting about our main character. I feel like in a lot of other books, having these two perspective characters would be setting us up for a romance, and I really hope we're not, because our main character does also have this girlfriend that she would really like to go back and spend time with, but we have to keep going and looking for this mentor who's doing a bunch of weird, they call it heresy or heretical actions. And like the whole stuff in here about the religion is really cool as well. I think at the beginning of every chapter we do get one of these little introductions that are either something this mentor has written or something psychologists have written about her, or sometimes it's like some kind of theology about these AI gods. And I think it's those little intros that I love the most. And I actually think that by the time I get to the end of this book, if I go back and read that very first intro that I loved, that it's going to have a whole different context, and I'm just loving it. So I've got about 100 pages left to go. Could I finish that today? Could I? I don't know, but we'll see.
Lazy Sunday mornings, hiding under covers. I don't mind staying in with you. Play your favorite movie, laying right beside me. I don't mind when it's just us two. That corner coffee shop we like to go. Late night walks with you to take me home. With you I never feel alone.
These little songs make me glad to call you mine. And you have got my head in the clouds. Oh, 1, 2, 3. All that I need is your body next to me on rainy days. Just need your company, don't need too much. Just your simple love and it's everything. The simple joy of hearing your voice every morning. I wake to a kiss on my face, so I don't need too much. Just your simple love and it's everything.
So I have finished The Outside, and I really love this. I do think there are some bits where it feels a bit slow. I maybe wish there had been a little bit more plot, but I'm still happy with it. I think because there's a lot of like investigation and exploration of this like thing that you can't really understand without, like, most of the people who try to understand it go mad, or people who do understand it are mad. And so you kind of have to be okay with a lot of details about this thing that you're still never really going to understand. But that is something that I really like, this kind of like abstract thing that's like beyond human comprehension. And the way that this book applies it to like science and reality and religion, I loved. I tabbed a few things through here. Honestly, I could have tabbed a lot more. I could have tabbed like every one of those little intros to the chapters pretty much. And I was right. I went back and reread this very beginning and I love it. So much about this book I love. I'm not sure that it's going to be for everyone, but I do know the sequels to this book, the next two that I have here, these two have even higher ratings. I think this one is high 3s. These ones are in the 4s for their average ratings. And I did also have a look at the next book in the series, and I can see that the main character is actually going to be different, and this one also is going to have a different main character, but they're characters I know and characters I love, and I assume that we will still have some of our angels and other characters from this one. I won't tell you who because spoilers, but I think this is really good. I liked it. I loved how it messed with reality, but I also loved how it looked at the impact on people and morality and belief. I'm really happy that I've finally got into this series because this was a 5-star prediction for me. And I think it's not the first 5-star prediction that's come through, but I've had a couple that haven't. So I'm glad that I got back to my 5-star predictions delivering. As well, I did finish off the Far Reaches anthology. Let me open it up to remember the stories. So since I last talked to you, I can't remember. Falling Bodies by Rebecca Roanhorse. Did I tell you about that one? I think I did. Then this morning I listened to The Long Game by Anne Leckie, which is from a really like an alien perspective. And as you know, I really love those non-human perspectives, so I loved that one. And I do think if you like the Imperial Reg trilogy, especially the spin-off books where you have some like alien perspectives, because in the main Imperial Reg trilogy you're mostly getting spaceship perspectives, but this was more like weird non-human creatures who have a weird perspective of humanity. So if you like those spin-offs, I think you could like this one. I think so. Then I've read Just Out of Jupiter's Reach by Nnedi Okorafor, and having just read Death of the Author, I could not help seeing that it had all the same elements. So it's basically about this Nigerian woman who, because of her DNA, is a match for these like organic spaceship experiments that they're doing. And so she's been paid a lot of money to go out into space and do this experiment, along with some other people who are also from Nigeria. I think, were they all from Nigeria, or at least around that area? So I won't say all the elements that it had in common with Death of the Author because spoilers for both the short story and Death of the Author, but not spoilers would be to say unlikable family. I've begun to wonder, does Nnedi Okorafor not like her family? Because I'm also remembering in the Binti books that her family wasn't that supportive. Were they? It's been a while since I read Binti. Anyway, because I started noticing those similarities, I can't really think about this short story in a non-connected way. I also think in a lot of ways the story wasn't doing anything that was interesting to me, but I could see some people would get something out of it. But I guess I already got all those things in Death of the Author just very recently. Then the last one was Slow Time Between the Stars by John Scalzi, and actually that was my favourite short story in the anthology. And I haven't read anything else by John Scalzi. I used to follow him on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter anymore, and I don't think he is either, but I've never actually read anything by him. But maybe I need to, because I really liked this one. It was basically told from the perspective of a spaceship, so another non-human perspective, and like the Imperial Reg, the perspective is a spaceship. He's been sent out into space to find like a planet that would be suitable for the human race to like set up on. But after 2 years, I won't tell you what he's done, but there's a lot of talk about what autonomy really is and kind of like, again, his perspective of humanity, which isn't probably the perspective humanity would like him to have. Anyway, I really liked a lot of the messages in that one. So I really do need to get to some other Scalzi stuff. Maybe not his like sillier stuff. Does he have any stuff that's not silly? I think so. I guess we'll see. Maybe once I read it, I'll realize it is all silly. I know he has some more like humorous ones, and that's not really my thing, but I think he has some more serious ones. Anyway, I have forgotten what I read in this vlog. This one Oh, and this one, and The Far Reaches, and another audiobook. Oh, Sunrise on the Reaping. But didn't I read another audiobook? Was I reading Age of Swords in this vlog as well? I honestly have kind of forgotten, but I think I read quite a lot. I definitely did not manage to read 100 pages every day like I was trying-ish. I've kind of realized it's probably not possible at this point. I don't know if I could make it possible, but I did feel like when I was trying too hard to hit that page count, that just other things I needed to do were falling by the wayside. But I do think that I like reading in big chunks where I can. Like, I like getting really invested in the story. Is there a way I can get fully invested in a story without losing connection to the rest of the world? I don't know, but I will endeavor to keep trying. Anyway, let me know if you've read any of those books, because I would love to chat with you about them down in the comments, or let me know if you've been reading anything lately that's been particularly exciting or great or terrible. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.